Throne room. The sound of heavy metal clanking echoed through the vast throne room as chains rattled against the stone floor. Doctor. Marcus Chen's eyes widened when a pair of Valdor soldiers dragged him in by his arms, their 4 hands gripping firmly but not roughly. His heart raced despite his best efforts to remain calm. The smell of dust and sweat mixed with an unfamiliar chemical odor that made him wrinkle his nose. Stop thrashing, one soldier growled lowly into the translation tablet hanging from a cord around Marcus's neck, which had been activated just moments ago when they discovered it on their prisoner. You are in no position to resist. Marcus paused and took several deep breaths, trying to steady himself as he was pulled forward until his legs buckled beneath him. He looked up into the throne room and nearly gasped at its grandeur, or perhaps sheer intimidation depending on one's perspective. The chamber itself resembled a cathedral, with towering stone arches that seemed to reach for the stars themselves. A massive chandelier hung from the ceiling above, casting intricate patterns of light through thick glass panes painted in metallic hues, reflecting off of armored plating and polished weapons displayed along walls covered with tapestries depicting conquests and valor. Atop a high dais was an imposing figure sitting regally on a throne that seemed to be forged from solid stone. This was Empress Kira'thax, the Eternal herself, towering over Marcus like a cliff face, her 4 arms draped across massive forearms resting upon 2 raised armrests carved with ancient symbols of power and authority. Her eyes glowed red, intense yet unblinking as she watched him with an unsettling mix of curiosity and barely contained anger. "Why does my daughter call you husband?" The deep baritone voice sent shivers down Marcus's spine, despite being translated through the tablet into a language he could understand fluently. Marcus swallowed hard, his mind racing to find words that would placate her without lying or inflating what had merely been an innocent slip of the tongue. "Your Majesty, I was just translating," one soldier muttered, clearly not impressed with Marcus's efforts at self-defense. He nudged him sharply in the ribs. Marcus winced but continued, trying to put as much sincerity into his voice as he could muster, hoping it would resonate through their cultural differences. "Your Highness, I assure you, there was no intent behind that term, sweetheart," Kira'thax repeated coldly, each syllable dripping with ice. Marcus's face went pale. He had read the translation tablets before teaching Princess Liara, and knew this could mean much more than a simple endearment in Valdori culture. "Yes," he hesitated, biting his lip as if trying to decide how much of an explanation was too revealing but necessary for survival nonetheless. "It is what you call your mate, isn't it?" the Empress continued coldly. She looked around at her guards and then back down at Marcus with a fierce intensity that made him feel like prey cornered by its predator, despite knowing she had no personal feelings of aggression towards him, at least not as far as he knew. Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes, in my culture, it's often used affectionately or casually between friends." The Empress cut him off sharply. "Casual?" She repeated the word with clear disdain before turning her piercing gaze back to him. He could practically see gears grinding behind those glowing red eyes as she processed his explanation. "But still," Kira'thax said slowly, leaning forward slightly from where she sat atop her throne, her voice lowering menacingly, but remaining easily understandable through translation despite the language barrier between them. "If you call my daughter's heart yours by any means, no matter how casually intended, it is a claim." Marcus' stomach clenched nervously as he realized just how serious this misunderstanding could be. "Your Highness," Marcus pleaded, his voice rising slightly in an urgent attempt to clarify what was meant. "I only ever said it once. It was't. I didn't mean you claimed her heart," Kira'thax repeated darkly, cutting him off with a chilling finality that left no room for further argument. Marcus felt the weight of those words hanging heavy in the air like an unspoken verdict. His mind scrambled to find something else, any other explanation that might buy time or offer hope. "Your Majesty," he said quickly, catching his breath and looking up at her with as much honesty as possible despite feeling utterly lost now. "I didn't mean it the way it sounds, I promise." She narrowed those glowing red eyes further, but then leaned back slightly, again after a moment's contemplation. "Regardless," Kira'thax continued in that deep baritone of hers, sending shivers down Marcus' spine once more, as if preparing to make an announcement. "You have spoken a claim over my daughter's heart, and now face the trial necessary for resolution." Marcus swallowed, wet hard at her words, while she looked around again briefly before returning her attention back entirely towards him. "You will take 3 trials," Kira'thax intoned slowly, enunciating each word with weighty certainty. "One of combat, one of wisdom, and a final test requiring sacrifice." Her gaze bore into Marcus like lasers cutting through stone. As she spoke these last words aloud, it was clear that failure in any of those areas meant death. Marcus felt his heart drop to the pit of his stomach at this pronouncement. He had read enough about Valdori customs to know that their concept of trial could be just as literal as lethal if one failed to meet its requirements, especially given how much value they placed on bravery and courage above all else. "Your Highness," Marcus tried once more desperately, though he already knew his chances were slim to none based purely off the way things had transpired up until now. "There must be a misunderstanding." But before he could say another word of protest, Kira'thax raised her hand in dismissal. "Enough talk," she said firmly. "Prepare for your trial." And with those ominous words hanging heavy between them, like dark clouds rolling across the sky threatening rain or worse, Marcus knew there was little left to do but steel himself against whatever horrors awaited him next. Empress Kira'thax's voice echoed through the grand hall as she announced the trials Marcus would face. The room seemed to grow colder and darker as her words sank in, like a heavy fog rolling over the landscape of Marcus' mind. "Prepare for your trial," Kira'thax said firmly once more before returning her gaze to an ancient scroll resting on the armrest of her throne. She dismissed him with the flick of one clawed hand, sending shivers down his spine as if she had physically pushed him away. Marcus took a deep breath and tried to steady himself against the oppressive silence that fell after her declaration. He glanced around at the towering stone walls covered in intricate carvings depicting battles and conquest memories from Kira'thax, past victories. The air was thick with an acrid scent, a mix of burned incense and something metallic beneath it, a reminder of countless sacrifices made to honor their gods. He could feel eyes upon him now, belonging to guards posted along the walls, who watched silently like statues crafted from obsidian and marble. Their presence added another layer of tension, as they seemed both menacing and indifferent at once, an unsettling mix that heightened his anxiety even more. "Come," a guard called out suddenly, breaking through Marcus' thoughts with brisk efficiency. Marcus turned towards him without hesitation or complaint. There was no point in arguing when it would change nothing. The guards were already armed to the teeth, their armor gleaming under flickering torchlight as they led Marcus down narrow corridors and staircases that spiraled deeper into what felt like the bowels of this fortress. As he walked, memories flooded back, teaching Princess Liara human languages in a peaceful chamber far from here. Those lessons had been his haven among the dangers lurking around Valdor's capital citadels, of which Marcus now began to understand first, and, as they passed through hallways lined with weapons and trophies taken from defeated worlds, a sudden flash of laughter made him pause mid-step. But then another sound came crashing over it, a low growl emanating somewhere ahead. His heart raced faster at the realization that this was where he would face his first trial. It wouldn't be long now until reality intruded on these nostalgic reveries and forced him to confront his fate. The guard stopped abruptly before two towering doors carved from dark wood, each one adorned with intricate designs depicting battles between Valdori warriors and various alien species. One of them pushed open slowly under his weight as he stepped aside, gesturing for Marcus to enter the arena beyond. Marcus took a deep breath again, as if trying to inhale confidence along with oxygen, and then entered what appeared to be an ancient colosseum filled with sand stretching out endlessly in all directions. Pillars rose around its circumference, like silent sentinels watching over battles long gone by, some still bearing marks from fights of the past. In the center stood a figure clad entirely in black armor that seemed to ripple and flow as if made of liquid darkness itself. Kira'thax, champion, ready for combat. The guard closed the door behind Marcus with finality as he stepped into view, leaving him alone within this arena where survival would depend solely on his wits and skill. Marcus hesitated only briefly before turning to face what awaited. He had come here willingly, after a choice that bound him now just as surely as those walls did, and there was no going back. He thought of Liara then, her laugh at one of his jokes during a lesson long ago, when she suddenly blushed and didn't correct him for calling her sweetheart. The way she had looked at him with eyes brightening under the weight of something new that hadn't been there before. That moment in time now felt so distant, and yet closer than ever as reality closed around Marcus like an iron grip. And then his thoughts were interrupted by another sound, a sharp clang from somewhere nearby, drawing immediate attention back to the present danger looming ahead. Kira'thax, champion, starting movements towards him with lethal grace. There was no time left for hesitation or regret now, only action remained as a guard's voice echoed across the arena. First trial, came the call, echoing off stone walls and pillars alike before settling into silence once more, like water lapping against pebbles at dawn's first light. Here it felt cold rather than warm. Combat. Marcus swallowed hard again, but straightened his posture, despite having zero fighting skills to speak of compared to this monstrous figure advancing on him now with terrifying precision. The arena lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that danced wildly over stone and sand alike, making every movement seem both graceful and deadly. But Marcus was not afraid, had faced greater fears than physical combat before today's events. Instead, he felt a strange calm settle within him, as if accepting whatever fate awaited beyond this moment in time. Whether it be survival or something else entirely mattered little now beside the path chosen thus far leading up to this trial of courage and honor. With that thought guiding his actions forward, Marcus took another step towards meeting Kira'thax, champion head on, ready to face what came next with every fiber of being resolved to stand unafraid. The arena was silent except for their approaching footsteps and breathing anticipation hanging heavy in the air, until Marcus, the guard, called one last time from beyond those closed doors, reminding Marcus that while he might fight this battle alone, had allies yet unseen who watched over him now more than ever before. And then there were no words left as combat commenced within these walls, a testament to bravery and resolve against all odds. It was here where humanity stood unafraid amidst Valdori traditions both harsh and unforgiving, ready for whatever trials awaited beyond this first confrontation with the Empress's champion. And he enters the arena against Kira'thax champion. The colossal shadow of Kira'thax champion loomed over Marcus as he stepped into the arena, his heart pounding against the walls of his chest, but his mind already racing ahead. The Valdori warrior was a towering figure, easily 8 feet tall, with 4 muscular arms and an armored carapace that gleamed ominously under the harsh lights above. Marcus called out one last voice from outside through a crack in the stone wall before it sealed shut behind him, completely isolating him here within this ring of judgment. The air was crisp and cold, carrying a scent of dust kicked up by hundreds, if not thousands, of previous battles fought to honor Valdori law. His translation tablet beeped softly on his belt, reminding him it would be more than just words that needed interpreting today. The champion's movements were deliberate as he turned to face Marcus fully now, red eyes glowing ominously from beneath a crown crafted of sharp bone-like protrusions and etched with some unknown script only Valdori could understand. "You," the creature growled in its deep rumbling voice, each syllable resonating through the arena as if announcing that this was indeed his moment to crush anything foolish enough to stand before him. Marcus took another slow breath, trying desperately to keep himself grounded amidst everything around threatening collapse, due simply from scale alone and the sheer presence of Kira'thax's mightiest warrior. There were no rules given save combat, but he knew better than most by now. Valdori traditions did not shy away from subtlety or unconventional methods in enforcing their will. "You're going to be disappointed," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tremor of disbelief that ran through him as this giant began closing distance between them. It was a lie, but one meant more for himself than anything else here, since he could hardly hope to survive traditional combat against such an opponent, even if trained in military arts, which thankfully weren't part of his curriculum back on Earth. The champion's steps were quick and fluid, moving with the grace expected from someone built primarily around destruction. But Marcus saw something odd. A momentary flicker across those red eyes, as though considering him strange, or perhaps simply curious about a human attempting such blatant defiance here within these sacred walls, where no mercy was shown for weakness. And so he spoke again, before realizing how foolish it might sound, echoing off cold stone and into silence between them. "You want to fight, right?" Marcus asked rhetorically, more than anything else now, since the answer seemed obvious enough, even if his opponent wasn't sure what form such engagement would take in facing one so obviously outmatched physically. The champion's movements paused slightly at that question, as though processing this unexpected challenge of thought rather than brute force. That hesitation was all Marcus needed to dash forward suddenly and grab something he never expected himself to use during an actual fight, his translation tablet sliding smoothly from its clip on his belt into waiting hands, where it could serve double duty if things turned nasty. "Let's try philosophy," Marcus offered hesitantly, though feeling oddly confident amidst his own absurdness. His eyes met those piercing red orbs once more as he raised the device like a shield before him, not daring to hope for anything, but rather accepting whatever came next might be better than meeting this inevitable end, so abruptly defined by circumstances. The champion blinked slowly in response, seeming almost confused or disbelieving of such an approach, perhaps unsure how one was supposed to counter words alone, when flesh and bone should have shattered under those claws long ago. And yet there Marcus stood still, moving not backing down despite everything stacked against him here today, proving only humans could truly be mad enough for this kind of fight. What? The creature's voice rumbled again, each word like thunder clashing with the quiet determination glowing in Marcus' eyes as he held up his table, both weapon and lifeline now, all wrapped into one unorthodox tool within Valdori combat terms. You think talk will save you? It might, replied Marcus calmly, though inside, every nerve ending screamed for panic, knowing how thin this line of defense truly was against such overwhelming force. His mind raced with memories back home, classes filled with discussions about peace, understanding across cultures, even amongst those who seemed utterly foreign at first glance. But there were no classes here, not enough time, nor did he have any hope today would end differently if armed, instead merely using whatever means came to hand now in this desperate bid for survival. If we don't understand each other, can anything else matter? Marcus pressed on, speaking fast now, feeling the weight of every word meant more than just simple talk, but rather establishing something profound, even if only within his own heart. The champion paused again, as though considering not merely Marcus himself standing before it unarmed and unafraid, but also perhaps questioning its very role here against such a strange challenge. That moment stretched out infinitely long between them, both silent figures, locked in this dance of wills, far from any true physical battle, thus far despite all signs pointing otherwise. Then, the Valdori warrior took an experimental step forward again, looking much more uncertain now than before, when it had seemed like death itself stalking Marcus across barren sands and stone walls. Its massive hand reached out curiously towards his tablet, instead striking with a backhand swipe aimed at sending him crashing to earth, but also perhaps studying this strange human whose defiance showed no signs of breaking. Marcus barely managed to dodge by tumbling sideways, feeling sand bite harshly against skin already bruised from countless lessons taught through language alone. His device clattered dangerously close, yet somehow still clutching it tightly, as he rolled upright again, ready once more for whatever came next, whether sword or spear, or simply another confused look from this giant tasked with destroying him. Or maybe, I can just hit you, the champion grunted out slowly, as if realizing belatedly what kind of fight Marcus meant to impose here on its terms. You are wasting my time. No, replied Marcus, quickly catching sight of that massive hand moving towards his table. To weapon now, in name only, though how much good it could do against such power was debatable at best. I'm just trying, not losing. He spoke again, even as he darted backwards away from claws reaching out for him, once more looking to end the charade. The champion's second attempt seemed frustrated then, moving faster and with far less patience than before as it aimed directly towards Marcus' throat instead of the tablet, which must have looked equally baffling, if not infuriating now amidst these strange customs imposed by its queen. Yet even without armor or any real training in defense, Marcus somehow managed to slip through gaps closing around him like water drawn into a narrow stream. You can't understand, he gasped out between dodges and blocks, barely slowing down the attack, but rather keeping it away from his neck, where blood would surely spray if claws broke skin, instead of just pulling back now. But maybe you don't need to. The words seemed to irritate more than help, however, as the champion roared in frustration, its movements becoming wilder and less controlled with each second passing without Marcus being crucified. Head beneath those four powerful limbs meant for far different purposes here today within these walls. You're dying, it snarled lowly now, almost out of patience altogether. End this. But Marcus wasn't giving up that easily, despite what logic screamed was a hopeless situation entirely beyond his control and skill set. His tablet beeped once more, catching sight of something he hadn't before, a small button marking projectile mode, which suddenly made far too much sense amidst these desperate circumstances. "Wait!" he shouted then, as the champion paused yet again, looking almost bewildered by this last resort, reaching out towards Marcus, who now stood still rather than flee even further backwards. "This isn't about killing you, it's about stopping." With those final words ringing clearly across stone and sand, Marcus flicked that button with a practiced ease gained back on Earth from countless games and simulations where such devices were often used as toys or learning tools rather than weapons of war. And then suddenly his tablet launched straight at the Valdori warrior, like an arrow shot directly towards its face. For just one brief instant everything paused amidst this otherwise chaotic scene. Marcus still standing defiantly despite odds that should have seen him broken long ago, while Kira'thax champion caught sight of danger headed its way now with surprising clarity, against every lesson taught here about what proper combat looked like. That tablet struck true against the creature's eye, sending it staggering backwards away from Marcus, who stood unmoving save for breaths still racing within chest, not yet ready to give up. The arena remained silent except for sounds of breathing and distant echoes off stone walls, where now everyone watched, utterly baffled by proceedings that defied everything expected. Even Kira'thax herself must be wondering what she had just witnessed here today, proving once again humanity could confound even the most rigid traditions when forced into unexpected situations. Marcus felt himself trembling despite still holding ground against overwhelming odds, knowing full well how close he came to death and defeat more than anything else now, amidst confusion reigning supreme throughout these hallowed grounds of Valdori justice. There was no time for relief yet, only acceptance that whatever came next mattered far less than surviving this singular moment in defiance. And so Marcus stood waiting as the champion blinked slowly, trying desperately hard again to comprehend what had just transpired here within its own sacred domain, where such foreign notions should have been impossible, if not outright rejected, long before reaching Marcus alone, standing there still defiant amidst everything stacked against him today, proving once more that courage could conquer far more than any blade or fist ever would. The crowd outside finally stirred into noise and commotion at what they had seen, their murmurs rising up through arena walls with increasing volume as realization dawned amongst them. All this human was not following Valdori law, but rather creating his own path despite everything placed in front of him. It unsettled traditions long held sacred here within this ring, where survival meant submission, and defeat came swiftly for any who dared challenge what stood above. "You're alive?" the champion finally managed to ask, through clenched teeth, looking almost confused now amidst its usual certainty about strength alone being all that mattered against such overwhelming odds placed before it today. "How?" Marcus remained silent, merely holding gaze with those red eyes, once more feeling gravity pull hard at heart, though knowing nothing left could break him here, despite everything else seemingly stacked against survival itself within these sacred walls. "Enough," came a new voice then from high above, where Kira'thax herself watched proceedings intently through lens of technology that allowed no mistaking her displeasure, even if none dared question her decisions. "Match called." Marcus let out breath he hadn't realized was held as realization hit home. Philithes wasn't victory, but rather survival earned against all logic suggesting otherwise, amidst traditions so rigid they rarely left room for such defiance, much less one so small yet standing unafraid despite everything stacked in front of him. Impressive, Kira'thax's voice boomed down from high above where no human could look back up towards. Wisdom trial tomorrow. Her tone was grudging respect amidst harshness expected here, proving Marcus had won not just this fight, but perhaps her interest as well, though price paid for such recognition remained unknown until it came due. Marcus nodded slowly in acknowledgement, knowing full well what those words meant beyond immediate surface, and a third test awaited yet again within Valdori customs, where no easy path led to safety and freedom, only determination kept any alive thus far. His eyes met Kira'thax, even if unable to look upwards, and amidst her massive presence, feeling somehow smaller despite having proven defiance was worth whatever came next. And so the arena fell silent once more, save for sounds of breathing echoing off stone walls, where humanity stood unafraid against Valdori traditions, proving there were moments when logic yielded ground before courage and heart rather than sheer force alone, making the stand one worthy indeed amidst endless possibilities ahead, still uncertain, though promising in defiance, thus far shown. And the Empress is grudgingly impressed. Wisdom trial tomorrow. Marcus' heart pounded as he stepped out of the arena, his body battered, but standing tall despite the silence that hung heavily around him. The air was thick and hot, carrying a scent of blood and sweat from the recent battle. His muscles ached from the exertion, yet there was an odd sense of clarity in his mind, a rare moment where all noise seemed to fade away. Marcus, Empress Kira'thax's voice boomed down from high above. He looked up towards her massive form perched on a balcony, surrounded by intricate Valdori technology and symbols of power he still struggled fully to understand. Impressive, she said, her tone grudgingly, acknowledging his survival despite the odds against him. Marcus nodded slowly in response, feeling a mix of exhaustion and resolve. The crowd around them murmured with uncertainty as they digested what had just transpired. Defiance of human logic within their sacred traditions proved an unsettling concept for most Valdori present to grasp fully yet acknowledge. Impressive indeed, Kira'thax continued, her deep voice echoing through the arena. Your survival speaks volumes about courage and determination not seen often amongst lesser beings. Marcus met her gaze unflinchingly, his own eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and defiance in this unexpected praise from such an imposing figure. Yet he knew there was no room for complacency now. Another trial awaited tomorrow to prove whether today's demonstration had meaning beyond the moment. Tomorrow, Kira'thax announced, you face wisdom trial. She paused slightly, as if considering something before adding sternly, failure means death. Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine, despite her words being expected rather than new information. The concept of the wisdom trial was well known amongst Valdori culture, an intellectual challenge designed to test one's mental fortitude and understanding within their rigid societal norms. Understood, Marcus replied with quiet determination, not breaking eye contact as he acknowledged the gravity placed upon him now. The Empress nodded curtly before her attention shifted elsewhere amidst bustling figures moving around in preparation for what was next. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all eyes on him despite their uncertainty or awe mixed equally amongst them now. Marcus, Yara's voice cut through his reverie as she rushed forward from where spectators had been allowed to stand safely distant, but watching closely throughout proceedings today. She appeared smaller than usual given recent events around her larger presence, though there was no mistaking the determination in her eyes, matching her father's resolve perfectly now. "Are you all right?" Her voice held a mix of concern and curiosity that Marcus knew well enough, not just as his student's tone, but also personal worry about him directly, since their close bond formed through study sessions amidst language lessons over recent weeks. "I am," he answered honestly, placing hand gently on her shoulder despite the crowd moving around them now. "It's more important we focus what comes next." Liara nodded solemnly at this reassurance from Marcus, though clearly still absorbing all that had happened in Arena just moments past, where she stood merely observer rather than participant amidst Valdori customs so foreign yet fascinating to learn about through him. "Wisdom trial." Empress Kira'thax's voice boomed down once more, breaking initial silence forming around them now amongst spectators beginning to process events unfolding with increasing understanding and realization about what had transpired today within sacred walls of this arena. Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder, then, turning slightly towards figure approaching a Valdori guard, moving quickly yet calmly in mannerisms clearly used to navigating complex social dynamics here amidst rigid rules upheld strictly around them all. The guard spoke lowly but distinctly enough for Marcus alone to hear amidst surrounding murmurs beginning now within Arena as people started processing events seen today. "Come, follow," the guard instructed firmly with look towards Kira'thax's balcony, indicating direction clearly meant by this directive despite no formal order given verbally. Among such figures present here, commonly known to defer directly to Empress herself in matters of authority rather than questioning outright like lesser beings might dare, often doing so. Marcus nodded again slowly before looking back at Liara, whose eyes remained locked with his own, as if seeking reassurance amidst uncertainty rising now amongst both them despite recent events proving unexpectedly affirming yet equally foreboding, given path set ahead still unknown but certain to come regardless of current standings reached today within Valdori society overall. He placed hand gently atop Liara's head in part farewell, part blessing before turning fully towards guard, indicating direction clearly meant for him now amidst proceedings unfolding swiftly despite initial quiet surrounding them all just moments past. Marcus followed closely behind, moving quickly through busy crowd gathering around arena walls as spectators moved eagerly to discuss events seen today amongst themselves rather than remaining silent passive observers of recent battle fought within Sacred Ring itself. As they approached a side exit hidden away from main entrance, where bustling masses gathered now amidst excitement rising about proceedings witnessed just moments past, Marcus found himself entering what appeared small corridor leading deeper into complex structure housing Arena altogether. It was dimly lit by flickering torches affixed high up on walls, casting long shadows around them as he moved swiftly following guard, who seemed acutely aware of urgency within such setting given circumstances surrounding him now amidst recent events, placing focus squarely back onto paths still needing navigated ahead despite temporary reprieve earned today through sheer defiance against Valdori traditions altogether. "Wait here," the guard instructed once they reached small chamber off main corridor, its doors closing silently behind them as if sealing Marcus into uncertain future awaiting within rather than merely passing transition point amidst complex structures housing Arena itself now. The room was bare except for a single chair positioned centrally, on stone floor, surrounded by walls devoid of any adornment or decoration save flickering light cast by lone torch fixed high above. Marcus took deep breath, feeling weight settle fully around him despite recent moments proving so unexpectedly affirming yet equally foreboding given path set ahead still uncertain, but certain to come regardless. He knew this wisdom trial was designed specifically, not just test mental acuity, amidst rigid societal norms, upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture overall, but also prove courage standing against overwhelming odds placed in front of any attempting defiance thus far shown today. Marcus, Empress Kira'thax's voice boomed once more down from high above, though this time sounding different, somehow more deliberate and focused than mere acknowledgement given earlier amidst recent events. Your test begins now. He looked up toward source of voice despite room being dimly lit only by flickering torch above, knowing no immediate visual confirmation would be visible even if he searched entire chamber for figure speaking thus clearly, indicating direction meant solely for him now amidst proceedings unfolding swiftly ahead regardless. Prepare yourself, Kira'thax instructed sternly, her tone leaving little doubt about gravity of moment surrounding him despite room remaining bare and silent around Marcus himself. Remember, wisdom proves hard. Marcus nodded quietly to himself amidst silence enveloping chamber fully now, as if sealing final moments before path laid out ahead truly began in earnest rather than merely preparation stage seen thus far today. Amidst battles fought physically, alongside mental acuity tests awaiting within. He felt his mind clear, despite physical exhaustion still aching muscles through him, focusing instead on clarity of thought needed now more than ever given challenges placed directly in front of him by such rigid societal norms upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture overall. His heart pounded harder not just from recent battles fought physically amidst arena walls, but also mental fortitude required for wisdom trial itself proving far beyond any mere physical challenge faced thus far despite all odds stacked seemingly against survival within sacred ring altogether. Marcus, Empress Kira'thax, voice boomed down once more, now clearly speaking directly to him alone, rather than acknowledging crowd gathered outside watching proceedings unfold with increasing curiosity amidst recent events seen today. What is stronger than Valdori steel? Silence hung heavy in chamber fully around Marcus despite flickering torch above casting shadows long and deep through room otherwise bare save single chair positioned centrally on stone floor where he stood amidst uncertainty rising now amongst both mind and heart, given path set ahead still unknown, but certain to come regardless. Warriors outside arena walls began guessing aloud, their voices echoing back through corridors leading here into chamber itself, though Marcus remained focused solely upon question asked directly of him alone by Empress herself, despite no immediate need for answers spoken aloud amidst crowd gathered without yet knowing specifics laid out thus far within wisdom trial awaiting fully ahead now rather than merely preparation stage seen thus far today. Fire, one warrior guessed, voice rising amidst murmurings surrounding them all outside arena walls, as realization dawned amongst spectators alike about nature of test placed directly in front Marcus himself despite recent battles fought physically amongst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here overall. Marcus shook his head slightly at this guess, though not dismissing it entirely given logic seemingly supporting such answer amidst Valdori culture where fire itself symbolized destruction and rebirth equally within complex beliefs held sacred here overall. Yet there was something missing in simplicity, thus presented despite all obvious understanding behind concept alone amidst recent events, seen today, amongst battles fought physically, amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here as well. Time, another warrior offered, voice carry, in clear sense of certainty, amidst crowd gathered outside arena walls now amidst realization forming fully, about nature test placed directly in front Marcus himself regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud yet rather than merely preparation stage thus far shown within wisdom trial awaiting ahead now overall. Again Marcus shook head slightly at this answer, though not dismissing it entirely, either given logic seemingly supporting such concept as well amidst Valdori culture, where time itself symbolized ultimate force shaping all things despite initial strength, seen in steel, amongst rigid societal norms, upheld strictly here overall. Yet there was something missing again, in simplicity, thus presented despite obvious understanding behind concept alone, amidst recent events, seen today, amongst battles fought physically, amongst complex beliefs held sacred here still. Death, a third warrior ventured, voice carry, in grim certainty, amidst crowd gathered outside arena walls now amidst realization forming fully, about nature test placed directly in front Marcus himself regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, yet rather than merely preparation stage, thus far shown within wisdom trial awaiting ahead overall. Death itself symbolized ultimate end to all things despite initial strength, seen steel amongst rigid societal norms, upheld strictly here as well. Marcus' heart clenched slightly at this guess, understanding grim certainty behind concept amidst Valdori culture, where death itself represented finality beyond all else yet still, there was something missing in simplicity, thus presented despite obvious logic supporting such answer amidst recent events, seen today, amongst battles fought physically, amidst complex beliefs held sacred here overall. He thought about Liara and her determination, her courage, the way she looked at him with eyes full of unspoken questions and answers both. His mind cleared amidst physical exhaustion, still aching muscles, through him, now yet focus on clarity needed more than ever given challenges, placed directly in front Marcus himself, by such rigid societal norms upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture overall. The commitment to protect someone without armor, Marcus answered finally, his voice steady despite heart racing beneath surface. Love makes warriors of scholars, and shields of bare hands. Silence hung heavy around him as words resonated deeply, amidst flickering torch above casting shadows long through chamber otherwise bare save single chair position centrally, on stone floor, where he stood fully now amidst path set ahead still unknown, yet certain to come regardless recent events, seen today amongst battles fought physically, alongside mental acuity tests awaiting, within wisdom trial itself proving far beyond any mere physical challenge faced thus far. Empress Kira'thax remained silent for a long moment, her deep voice finally breaking silence, surrounding chamber fully, around Marcus despite room otherwise bare save single chair position, centrally, on stone floor, where he stood amidst clarity needed more than ever now rather than merely preparation stage, shown thus far within wisdom trial awaiting ahead overall. She nodded slowly then, amidst flickering torch above casting shadows long through chamber still silent fully, around Marcus himself. Your answer is alien to us, she said finally, her tone reflecting grudging respect amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture as well, yet that makes it profound. Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine despite physical exhaustion still aching muscles through him now, yet heart strangely lightened amidst realization forming fully about nature test passed, thus far within wisdom trial awaiting ahead regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, yet rather than merely preparation stage shown previously overall. He nodded slowly in acknowledgement towards Empress Kira'thax, even if unable to look upwards amidst her massive presence, feeling somehow smaller despite having proven defiance was worth whatever came next nonetheless. His eyes met hers directly as words resonated deeply, amidst clarity needed more than ever now rather than mere physical challenge faced thus far within sacred ring altogether. "You pass," she declared finally, voice carrying weight and authority indicative finality reached amidst proceedings unfolding swiftly yet grudging respect remains amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall nonetheless. One trial left. Marcus felt a mix of relief and determination settle over him now despite exhaustion still evident amidst recent battles fought physically within sacred ring altogether. He knew the road ahead remained long, fraught with danger and uncertainty, even as he stood unafraid in front of Empress Kira'thax herself, an act that spoke volumes about courage beyond mere physical prowess. And so the chamber fell silent once more save for sounds of breathing echoing off stone walls, amidst clarity needed more than ever now, rather than merely preparation stage, shown previously, within wisdom trial awaiting ahead overall. Humanity stood unafraid against Valdori traditions, proving there were moments when logic yielded ground before courage and heart, rather than sheer force alone, making this stand one worthy indeed amidst endless possibilities ahead still uncertain yet promising in defiance thus far shown. And the Empress is grudgingly impressed. Wisdom trial. Tomorrow. Empress Kira'thax's chamber was a stark contrast to her overwhelming presence. Stone walls stretched endlessly into darkness, illuminated only by torches set at intervals along the rough-hewn surface. The air was cold and dry, with a faint scent of iron from the blood that had been shed here over countless generations. Marcus stood in the center of this cavernous space, his heart pounding as he waited for her next command. "Marcus Chen," Empress Kira'thax boomed suddenly, her voice echoing off the walls. "What would you give up to ensure Princess Liara's safety and well-being?" The question hung heavy between them. Marcus felt sweat bead on his brow despite the chill of the chamber. He knew she expected answers like wealth or status trivialities in a place where such things meant little. But those weren't the only sacrifices he was willing to make for Liara, and he didn't want to lie now that they had reached this critical point. "I would give up my way home," Marcus said firmly. "I'd stay here teaching her, even knowing it's exile from everything I know. 'Tis worth it." Empress Kira'thax regarded him with piercing red eyes, the silence stretching uncomfortably long. When she spoke again, there was a note of skepticism in her voice. "Not enough," she said flatly. "Your sacrifice must be greater still if you wish to earn my daughter's trust and respect fully among Valdori culture." Marcus felt his heart drop into his stomach as he realized what this meant. The Empress began motioning with one clawed hand towards a set of guards standing silently in the shadows, their armor glinting ominously. "Take him away," she ordered coldly. "Prepare for execution by morning light." The room seemed to grow even colder around Marcus now as he felt his own blood turn to ice. He knew this was part of her test to see if he would falter in the face of death itself. But there were limits even to a man's bravery. And then, unexpectedly, Liara stepped into view from behind one of the torches. Her eyes shone with an intensity that made Marcus' breath catch in his throat. "Stop," she commanded loudly enough for everyone present to hear clearly despite chamber size overall. "Father says I can choose my own tutor." The Empress turned sharply towards her daughter, all traces of a smile vanishing instantly from the hard lines around her mouth. "What are you talking about?" Kira'thax demanded harshly. Her voice echoed off stone walls surrounding them fully, as guards ceased movement amidst commands given, yet eyes remained fixed coldly still on Marcus himself. Overall, nonetheless. Liara stood firm, her small frame trembling slightly with resolve rather than fear amidst Valdori culture's expectations shown thus far completely. Overall, regardless, immediate confrontation faced now itself. "I've made up my mind," she insisted bravely. "I set it all in motion myself because I wanted him to stay." Her gaze shifted towards Marcus once more, as if seeking his understanding, willing somehow beyond words themselves, yet deeply felt nonetheless amidst clarity needed now rather than mere preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether. Silence fell heavy between them, then even the torch flames seemed muted by weight of revelation shared now fully around chamber itself despite physical exhaustion still aching muscles. Through Marcus himself, overall regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, yet rather than merely physic. "I'll challenge face thus far nonetheless." Marcus couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of relief washing over him as he realized Liara's bravery. He was touched beyond measure by her actions, and it showed in his voice when he spoke next. "Thank you," Marcus said simply to the princess, while Empress Kira'thax remained unmoved yet overall nonetheless. "You've proven that true courage isn't about giving up everything but holding on to what truly matters." Empress Kira'thax stared down at her daughter for a long moment before turning back towards Marcus, once more amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture as well. "Explain," she commanded coldly, yet tone reflective grudging respect shown now rather than merely physical challenge faced thus far within sacred ring altogether nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud still rather than preparation stage shown previously. Overall regardless wisdom trial itself proving more beyond simply knowledge amassed fully now despite exhaustion through muscles, yet heart somehow lightened amidst realization forming about nature of test passed thus far entirely. Marcus took a deep breath, his mind racing as he tried to piece together exactly how Liara had orchestrated this latest twist in their relationship. He knew it wouldn't be easy, was no diplomat, and the cultural nuances were complex, but if there was one thing he understood deeply now amidst Valdori culture's expectations shown thus far completely, overall regardless immediate confrontation faced nonetheless, it was that standing up for what you believed in mattered more than anything else. And the Empress is grudgingly impressed. Wisdom trial tomorrow. Chapter 6 Resolution. Marcus sat on a stone bench inside the vast chamber where Liara's sacred ring was located earlier that day, his back against one of the cold walls, and stared at the flickering torches lighting up the dim room. The air seemed to vibrate with tension and anticipation as he tried to process everything that had transpired in recent hours. Despite the physical exhaustion from facing down an alien monarch who commanded entire star systems, he felt a peculiar mix of hope mingling with dread. The Empress Kira'thax stood at the far end of the chamber, her towering form casting long shadows across polished stone floors beneath armored feet, and massive claws clicking softly against cool stones. She had remained silent, since declaring this as Liara's wisdom trial, to be held on the morrow, yet still no word regarding their fate beyond that ominous statement hanging heavy in the air like a dark cloud looming over them all. Suddenly, there was movement beside him. Marcus turned his head and saw Princess Liara approaching with hesitant steps, despite her usual confident demeanor. Her eyes were downcast as she reached out to place a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort perhaps, or seeking reassurance herself. "Marcus," she began softly but firmly, "malicious, not heartless." At those words, Marcus felt the weight in his chest lighten slightly, despite knowing full well how impossible such an assertion seemed given all that had happened. Liara continued hesitantly, as if searching for courage within her own voice before looking up to meet his gaze fully. "She just doesn't know any other way." The Empress' imposing presence loomed closer, breaking into their conversation with a low growl in her throat, a warning more than words necessary from such an authority figure. "Princess," the Valdori monarch rumbled sharply, yet not without curiosity, now evident rather than merely cold disdain, overall nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, thus far instead proving wisdom trial, indeed, beyond simply physical challenge faced within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now. "Your tutor must prepare adequately." Marcus glanced nervously between mother and daughter, realizing he had been given an unspoken chance. Perhaps it was nothing more than another test to see if humans could stand their ground against overwhelming force, but still a glimmer of hope nonetheless. "Empress," Marcus began tentatively yet directly, aiming for respect shown now rather than merely fear felt previously, amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far within sacred ring altogether nonetheless. "Can you tell me how I can best prepare? What exactly does the wisdom trial entail?" Kira'thax's gaze bore into him intensely before she finally turned away slightly towards Liara once more, her tone sharp yet carrying an undercurrent of something almost consideration. "She will test your knowledge and resilience," Kira'thax explained curtly, "amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture as well. If you fail, there are no second chances." Liara squeezed Marcus' shoulder gently in support, her eyes reflecting a mix of determination and sorrow for his uncertain fate. "You're doing great, sweetheart," Liara whispered softly yet firmly, over all nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed, beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. This phrase hung in the air, between theme and echo of a previous misunderstanding, but here taking on new meaning amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far. Marcus blinked, taken aback by the unexpected endearment, yet understanding quickly dawned on him. Under Valdori customs, calling someone sweetheart was tantamount to declaring lifelong commitment or marriage, a concept he never intended but had inadvertently stumbled upon through cultural misunderstandings and genuine care for Liara herself now overall nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. The Empress, hearing these words, paused mid-stride, with her red eyes narrowing sharply towards Marcus, but then seemed to pause, considering the implications amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall, nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. Silence stretched between them like an unbreakable chain, heavy with tension and potential consequences for one small human's unwitting declaration of love amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall, nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. Tiny human Kira'thax finally spoke with a low, rumbling chuckly, sound so unexpected from this imposing figure that Marcus almost recoiled in shock over all, nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. You lecture me about love and fear? Marcus swallowed hard, meeting her gaze unflinchingly, though his heart pounded wildly in his chest amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. If you kill me, he replied steadily yet with clear defiance shown now rather than merely fear felt previously. Your daughter learns love means control, and that's not conquest, that's fear. Liara squeezed his shoulder again, her eyes wide but resolute amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. The Empress stared at Marcus for another long moment before turning away abruptly once more yet paused a final time to speak without looking back amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. Prove you're worthy, she declared coldly yet carrying an undercurrent of something almost respect shown now rather than mere dismissal over all nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. You have 1 year. Marcus blinked, the weight of that statement settling heavily on him like a hammer blow amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. I'll need coffee, he finally managed to say with forced levity yet genuine resolve shown now, rather than merely resignation felt previously, amidst rigid societal norms, upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture, over all nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously, within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed, beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. Lots of coffee. Liara laughed softly beside him, her hand still resting on his shoulder, amidst rigid societal norms, upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture, overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced, thus far within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. The Empress turned at the sound and regarded them both with eyes that seemed to see more than just humans or outsiders, but rather individuals who might not be so weak after all amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture, overall nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously, within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed, beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. Go, she commanded finally, her voice carrying a hint of dismissal yet perhaps something more amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture, overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced thus far within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. Prepare. Marcus and Liara exchanged looks before standing up together, their hands intertwining as they left the chamber amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here amongst Valdori culture, overall nonetheless regardless immediate need for answers spoken aloud, thus far rather than merely preparation stage shown previously, within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed, beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. 1 year to prove love. Marcus thought he could manage that amidst rigid societal norms upheld strictly here, amongst Valdori culture, overall nonetheless regardless immediate confrontation faced, thus far, within sacred ring altogether despite exhaustion remaining present fully now proving wisdom trial, indeed, beyond simply knowledge amassed entirely. And 1 year to prove love. Marcus thinks he can manage that.